Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!
Let's get dangerous.
And dangerous it was, because we're missing one because he had to go and stop the arms deal.
Oh, that's right. Oh, poor Eric.
They
Hey,
are. It's just action figure accessory arms, but still, it's an
Yeah.
arms deal.
yes, I'm like, they could have used really large bullets, and at least they only destroyed the cabinet. They could have just taken. He could have woke up and they were sitting on his chest, going, "We gotta talk to you, dude."
Yeah, it would have been what, small soldiers all over again.
I said, yeah, we've seen Small Soldiers. We know how this goes.
Small soldiers, the commando division.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And when you have to deal with the likes of Destro, especially since
Oh.
we've been reading that comic book,
Yep.
it's not going to be pretty.
Eric, we missing you, dude, and I don't have any Barbies, but I got a couple of Funko Pops. Like I have what? David Tennant's. No, not David Tennant's. I have Eccleston's and Baker's Funkos. So if you need a couple of doctors too to come, settle that stuff for you, just let me know. I'll pop them in a TARDIS and send them on over. He brought out the big guns. I so missed you guys. I'm so sorry about last week.
Oh, there's nothing about last week was last week. I don't even remember last week, other than it was a relatively short show, but only because I didn't have anything to review. I don't even have anything to review this week because of tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, I spent last weekend for 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, waking up to text and emails from Comcast going, "We've detected a service outage in your area that will affect your business. And so you may find your service going out. We haven't terminated you. You just may lose service for a while." It's like, great, wonderful.
But they're going to reduce your bill by 3 days, right?
No.
There's no service.
Yeah, right.
What?
You think Comcast is going to give up any one of those $135.02? You are choking yourself. It's like, and it's part of me. It's like, yeah, you guys should like reimburse me those days you're costing me service. Well, we can't do that. That's not part of our policy. It's like, right.
On the business side, it's not part of their policy. It really isn't.
No.
On the consumer side, it is.
It's if you lose even half a day of service, they will like go, "Oh, we'll take 50 cents off your bill."
Yeah.
And that's about it. Maybe
Exactly.
they'll take maybe 56 cents to $1 off your bill. And I'm like, I pay $135 and change. Y'all can't reimburse me $3. And it's like, no, it's very important that we, charge you every cent imaginable.
No, you was only down for a total of 30 minutes. So you equate 30 minutes to 25 cents.
I was down Thursday evening, because I was watching guys on TV. My
Mhm.
TV kept going on and off. My internet
Mhm.
kept going out and out. And then it did it again Friday and then Sunday. So it's like, okay, there's no way I could have done the show because my Wi-Fi just was not stable. Luckily today, and I had to wait for my oldest to wake up because my desktop used to live at the front of this room. And this room is 16 feet. So, and I bought a cable for it to connect to our older router, and it wasn't long enough. So I had to buy a longer cable. My intern uses that cable, and I didn't want to just snatch that cable from her because it's like, well, that's not fair to you. So today I got up and I was like tearing through stuff, trying to find this other cable that I knew we had, but couldn't figure out which one it was. And I found the black cable with what looked like all the right markings on it, but Charles was asleep. So when he woke up, I grabbed the cable and I said, "Hi, is this the cable that connects that I can connect my laptop to the thingy with?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And it's like, "Great, connect." Because my fear was if it wasn't the right cable, and it wasn't graded for this, I would plug it in to the router, plug it into my laptop, and everything is on my laptop. And all I would have needed was for my laptop to go boof. And all that work I've been doing, all my comics, all my scripts, all that stuff, except for the few things I have on Dropbox, I'd lost just everything.
Hmm.
So
I'm going to play this just because this is probably how you would have felt.
Emotional damage.
That's the only reason why I switched brands real quick. It's like I don't have that video on this side, but yeah, she would have felt that emotional damage because it's like I plugged it in, everything seems right. What happened to my laptop?
poof. Been like, oh my goodness, I'd have been screaming emotional damage, and the kids would have been, the cops would have shut up. Knocking on the door, I come out, meat cleaver in one hand, big stabby things in the other. Yes, ma'am, we were told screams were emanating, and you'd have heard that, I'd been taken out by the cops because I lost it over the death of my laptop.
When I go back in there, there's going to be more screams taking care of the people that called you. So,
yes. Did the neighbors downstairs call you? Okay, I'm going down there next. I've already had to do that once. She was kind of having some sort of fit down there, and I grabbed my meat cleaver and several big knives and went and banged on her door. And I guess she must have looked out because I was standing there holding the things like this, and she got real quiet. It was like, good. Back upstairs. And I told my intern, it's like, if you hear me screaming, just call the cops. Just go ahead, call the cops, because one of us is probably going to be in need of medical attention, and the other one's going to need a prison cell. So just go ahead and call the cops.
I just know from my own experience, if it's not a scream of joy, call the cops. If it's a scream of joy, then everything's okay. Just let her be. Let her be. It will work itself out.
Now, sometimes screams of joy can sound a little like screams of terror, especially if somebody's not used to the fact that you howl and occasionally bite. That first time they start freaking out.
is this part of the lycanthrope hunting that you're credited for? Mm-hmm.
I'm part lycanthrope.
Have you seen Have you seen any of the trailer teasers or anything for Wolfman?
No. Which is there a new one outside of the Del Toro?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
working
okay.
on a new Wolfman. I've just seen some stills that, and also some false stills that were released. That apparently they were like, this is what the Wolfman's going to look like, and they're like, no, this is another character or some kind of or a masked individual in the show. It's not the final result of what the Wolfman's makeup and everything will look like.
So it's going to be a TV series.
I thought it was a movie, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. I haven't dug because it's one of those things I'm like, I don't want to hear too much. I want to wait until more comes out officially, not just speculation. So
The
I
last
have to laugh at that statement here. Hey, 50 cents is 50 cents.
That's right, Donna. Hey, I did find with the Halloween season coming up, I discovered something I had never heard of. It's comic book related, and I wanted I wanted to tell you guys. So I saw it just popped up in, I think it was in my YouTube feed of, well, you like horror things, and so here and comic book things. I was looking up here. You might like this, and it's called Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. It's an animated movie,
Ooh.
1980, and it also goes by the title Tomb of Dracula because it's a Marvel production.
Right. That's what I know it as. Tomb of Dracula.
Okay. I had
It
never heard of this.
was a very short run television series.
It's an hour and a half movie is the format that it's on YouTube as.
Well, it's a
Ooh.
lot longer than an hour and a half.
Okay, I gotta look for this because
Yeah,
I like me. I am still very angry that they have not announced another season of Castlevania
Mm.
because I was loving me some Castlevania. I love me some Alucard. So and they held him off to the end of season 2. We don't get to see Alucard until like the last few seconds of season 2 is when Alucard shows up and it's like, yeah, that's my baby. But because I'm now working out my spooky stuff viewing from now until about the 5th of November because Samhain, which is the Celtic version of Halloween, it's also the Celtic New Year, but it carries on more than one night. It can be a couple of days. So it's like traditionally for me, I will. It's like spooky season is until about the 5th of November.
Right.
Then I start worrying about, okay, how many people are coming to eat? Did I get a big enough turkey? Can I make enough stuffing?
Oh, but the Tomb of Dracula thing. Now it was a Asian artwork, kind of an anime feel to it, but pretty good for its time as far as the art, I thought. And it was it takes parts of the Tomb of Dracula storyline from the comics, but it leaves out the Blade. Blade is not his story's not in there, and also the Doctor Strange appearances that they had. Those are not part of it, but it's definitely a product of its time. But I was just tickled to find it, and it was definitely worth a watch just to see how far Marvel has come in and some of their animated stuff, and then just on projects. Because I remember the company that put it out, I do remember them, and they were always on the the shelf in the video stores that were like, hey, if you didn't find the regular things that you wanted, look over here. Or look, it's the dollar bin day. When you rent this for $1.
It's not the first string team, but you might have fun.
Exactly.
Wait.
That company
So
put out stuff.
It wasn't, what was it? The original distributor that I remember for like stuff like from Sumbo, from like G.I. Joe and the Transformers and everything was FHE. So it wasn't
It doesn't seem right.
Okay, so I could have sworn that Tomb of Dracula was done by Sumbo during that time, Sumbo Productions.
That doesn't sound right. But now it had, how there's always like 2 or 3 names associated with, and then Marvel is there. focused on the Marvel, and the others I'm like, that one I recognize from the the cheaper rentals of the past. One of the producing companies, but
Right. That probably was FHE, Family Home Entertainment.
that could be now. Yeah, because it was when you said FHE. No, but now that's quite possible.
Yeah,
Quite
because
possible.
that's what made me think about it. Because I was like, wait, did FHE did they kind of sort of just did that directly to video? Because it never got my understanding that Tomb of Dracula never got to air a lot on television because it wasn't picked up. It wasn't picked up by a lot of
Hey,
stations, so they kind of made it like
you
move
know,
a lot of it towards VHS
right? And
Ah,
or
okay.
I
videotape.
complain, about how they soft pedal vampire stories anymore. Not so much if it's for an adult audience, fine, but as far as animation, the episode of Batman Cape Crusader that we talked about that
Mhm.
had a vampire in it, it was handled in a certain way. That was more mature, but they like on Batman the Animated Series, they're like, no, you're not doing it. This has got bloodletting and fangs, and I mean, it's definitely a you could have it could have been marketed or like I said, this was in like the family get it for $1 bins. This kind of
Wow, kind of like
this
Vampire Hunter D meets Dracula.
yeah, but that company
Vamp-
was known to
Vampire
have
Hunter
stuff that were
D, I
for all
think, took
kids.
inspiration from Tomb of Dracula.
There you
Wow.
go. Yeah.
Considering Vampire Hunter D,
Like,
that's
like,
pretty intense.
like Clyde said, there was no Blade. There was no Blade, and you're right, there was no Doctor Strange, but it talked about a lot of stuff from the books, the actual legend of Dracula.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And had
And
the
Dracula was
vampire
a
hunters
lot.
of Rachel Van Helsing, Drake,
Mhm.
and Quincy Harker in the wheelchair with the gewgaws and the doodads for fighting vampires. So
Yeah, because I'm thinking you in the wheelchair, but dude, you got to convince me that I should feel safe around you.
don't count him out. He would fire wooden teak teak
Get the teak
darts.
steaks.
He had darts. Well, they used teak stakes, but he had teak darts that he would
Ooh.
fire that the chair fired. Yeah,
Mhm.
Dracula had to stay on his toes around Quincy because Quincy had fought vampires before. So
That's the reason why what's his name? Whistler and Blade was like a cheap version of Quincy. A
yep.
very cheap version.
Hey, you be nice to Chris Christopherson.
No, I'm
Anyway,
talking about in the books. In the books,
yeah.
Whistler was a very weak version of Quincy. Quincy was a lot stronger than Whistler ever would have been.
Oh, okay.
And not easily dominated by, he was resistant to manipulation by vampiric powers and stuff like that.
You couldn't skull bug him.
It was
awfully hard to do it.
It didn't stick.
He was the first one to see through it. He was usually the first one to see through it.
Yay.
You have to do it in such a way where he had never experienced it before.
Time for Hammer film, says Carl.
Well, I heard of one of those today that I had not seen. I'm gonna have to watch it this season. Kiss of the Vampire, because Hammer had the Count Dracula series,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the Count Karnstein trilogy.
Yeah.
And most of the vampire stuff fits into one of those two. But Kiss of the Vampire does not. It's an original story. It doesn't have a lot of the it has some of the standard Hammer players, but not like the big names that you expect to see.
Not Christopher
secondary.
Lee, not Peter Cushing.
No, they're not in it. But it looks pretty good, and it's one of those that very few people have seen, but the rating is high for it.
Is that the one with the lesbian vampire chicks?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Most of those are fit into the Count Karnstein, I think, part of their legacy. But this one is a family of vampires.
Ooh.
Yeah, and some people that fall under their become their prey. So it looks pretty good. So
Near Dark, I think that was the inspiration for Near Dark.
Well, I thought of that when I read the synopsis and saw a couple of scenes. I'm like, yeah, this could very well have been the
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 inspiration for that, because it's
the beta test of or the inspiration. What they saw and went, hey, we could do that in America. Let's make a vampire family. Yeah.
back in the early, well, when MySpace was still a thing, Hammer did, and they were one of the first few companies that did this on MySpace. They decided to create, they were trying to revamp the studio. So they did it at
No pun
15
intended.
and thought of that. Thank you. They were putting out a vampire movie in 5 to 10 minute increments. So, and it was a modern vampire film. In fact, 30 Days a Night, I think, sort of got there. The guy who did 30 Days of Night got his inspiration from this, because what it was is, in this film, the vampires were throwing this rave in this town, and they were collecting bodies, and they were collecting people, and they were collecting people because they had gotten a ship, and they were throwing this party and these raves and stuff, and they were draining the people of their blood, so that and some of the people they were putting in storage so that they could put them on this ship so that they would have enough blood for the trip. I forgot where they were supposed to be going, but supposedly they were going someplace where, they were actually supposed to be going like Antarctica or someplace where it's, very dark for a long time. So that they were going to go and not have to deal with humans and stuff. And of course, it's very British, so you have a lot of Cockney accents and stuff. The one Cockney gangster who decides he's going to throw down with the vampire. Of course, the vampire won. But when I think of 30 Days of Night, when you think of how that movie starts, because it's the ship that shows up in Alaska and then they go into the town, it's like, oh, okay. This would have been, where maybe it was those vampires and they kind of evolved and devolved, because the 30 Days of Night vampires are not, they're not Dracula. You don't want to, Dracula, you could sit down and have a conversation of sorts with. These guys, they're very, the 30 Days of Night, and I have to admit, it's why I liked it, because they're I call them devolved, because they're very animalistic. They don't want to talk to you, they don't want to hypnotize you, they're not trying to seduce you. They just want to rip your throat out and drink your blood and leave your leave your rotting corpse in the snow.
They reminded me, if I remember correctly, in the Lestat Chronicles, when he was talking about becoming a vampire and how he fared pretty much on his own, trying to and looking for others like him. He came across like these shambling creatures that were vampiric, but they were just like animals. You couldn't communicate with them. They didn't have much going on, but so they're absolutely not like the vampires that he ends up meeting, or like he is. They're like a different offshoot or brand or breed. But
this is when he gets away from his maker.
Yeah.
When he gets away from his maker, and then he tries to stay out in the world and find.
Elaine was describing the folks at the DMV.
Well, yeah. I hadn't quite thought of it that way. But yeah. Speaking of the DMV, I got to go there next month. My youngest has a disabled ID, so he only needs to get it renewed every 10 years. And his birthday is in November, and that's when his current ID runs out. And so they sent me the thing saying, hey, if you want, you need to take him in to get his new ID. And if you want the real ID, which is the one you have to get if you intend to fly. You don't need it if you're taking trains for now. But if you intend to fly, you have to have it. So, and it's like, well, it would be nice to at least just have it's like that thing from Alien versus Predator. It's when she asked the woman about having a gun, and she's like, well, it's like having a condom. I'd rather have one and not need it. you know? So, except I doubt they wouldn't find it very funny if I walked in and said, hey, this is like making sure I got a condom in my pocket, right? It's like, yeah.
I could just imagine their face. It's like, why would you? Never mind. Not even going to ask.
The last time I was there, I went with a friend and almost got kicked out because the guy who was working security at the new office on Randolph. Oh, Joe, he was so hot. He was so hot. I just had to walk up and go, oh, baby, you just so hot. It was like, yes, ma'am, but I think you should. Is your friend done? Yes. Okay, you should leave now. It's like, it's got to get your number first. No, ma'am, you should, you're my grandma's age. You need to leave. It's like, oh, just can't be an evil old chick these days. So who's got interesting comic book news? Because I've been looking at older stuff, so I haven't seen much new stuff.
I had a pretty good week. So we lost James Earl Jones this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
His soul.
Also, we also lost Frankie Beverly.
Yes.
Has also died.
Frankie Beverly is dead. There's a couple others too. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I don't know if you heard the song Joy and Pain, Clyde, because there's even a rap version of it that was made. That's one of their biggest hits was Joy and Pain.
Okay.
But he had a beautiful voice, and Mays did wonderful music.
What was the name?
Frankie Beverly.
Frankie Beverly. Okay,
yes. And if you're looking up the group, it's Frankie Beverly and Mays.
Okay.
Is how it was always titled, at least that I knew of.
Cool.
But he was one of those singers. I knew a lot of people who weren't necessarily in the soul, but on cool jazz stations, smooth jazz stations, he a lot of their stuff played.
Okay. Have you guys ever read the comic book Planetary?
No.
Okay. It was really, and some of the stuff they had like crossovers with DC, but they were an independent series that looked at a weird group of assorted people with powers that investigated, kind of like the X-Files with superpowers. Your agents have superpowers, and you investigate strange things. Like they found this giant remains of some sort of a monstrous moth on an island, only to find after they sent these people there that there's monsters all over the island. Okay, so
it was Mothra. They found Mothra.
Every issue was a nod to a genre like that. They had where what basically boiled down to analogs for the Silver Age Justice League of America had run afoul of a group of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen types in a reality crossover and decimated each other. And they found what was left of their Doc Savage guy and brought him back to tell. It was like he was the last from this reality to be able to relate to them what happened. So they delved in pulp, they delved in science fiction and Godzilla movies, but and each agent had their own little thing. One guy was immortal. One guy was called the drummer, and he could keep rhythm that would actually cause people make their actions change. And so it's very creative. It was a lot of fun. And the artist was John Cassaday. He was credited as a co-creator. And the same day, I believe the same day that James Earl Jones passed away, he passed away unexpectedly at 52 years old.
Oof.
And I went back digging through all of his artwork, and I'm like, he worked for Marvel, he worked for DC, he did a lot of stuff. Planetary is the first place I saw him, but he did like Dynamite did a Lone Ranger series that was really good, and his artwork was just he had a real thing for pulp characters, which made me appreciate him even more. But then he did World War II imagery of some of the Marvel characters, modern day, and the modern day takes of them too. So he was somebody and 52, it is kind of, he went to the hospital, and a week later he died in intensive care. So we don't really know
Wow.
what happened to him,
Oh.
but anyway, but that was one of the comic book news things that I latched onto this week, along with the animated Tomb of Dracula.
I will be looking that up. Like I said, I'm for those of you, if you know how to find me online, if you've got really interesting, and I'm looking for classic monsters, so vampires, werewolves. If you've got really good werewolf movies, let me know, because right now, my favorites are heavily on the British side. Dog Soldiers. If anyone's seen that, I love Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
That is just,
Yeah.
it is adrenaline fuel. The Howl is also good. And it's funny because Sean Pertwee is in both those movies. It's like I kind of want to
coincidence. I think not.
I keep wanting to write him a letter. Mr. Pertwee, can you please not get dead anymore? Don't get bitten by nothing. Don't get eaten alive. Just don't die anymore. My heart can't. Him and Sean Bean. It's like, I think they have a running bet how many movies and or TV shows they can do where they kick the bucket. And now Sean Astin has joined them, because every time you turn around, Sean Astin's in something and he's kicking the damn bucket. It's like, okay, next time I hear Sean Astin's in a series, I ain't watching it, because I'm tired of watching that boy die.
Then just watch Rudy over and over and over again.
There you go.
Not as much fun.
At least he gets carried off on people's shoulders while they're chanting his name.
Hell, I can watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Oh, well, he doesn't get, carried off, but you bow to no one. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks so cute when he cries. You just want to go boop on his snoot.
Yep.
I think it was last week you're talking about monsters. They've been doing these Universal Monsters, Dracula, the comic that they did, the Skybound, I think. Universal Monsters, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, that I reviewed some things on. It wrapped up. Very good story.
Frankenstein came out.
Ooh,
and
cool.
it is going back to we're telling the classics movie version of the story pretty much, but we have a perspective that's not been explored before. Somebody is it's a test. It's like a testament from somebody that is in the shadows watching what goes on.
Igor?
So,
Mrs.
Nope.
Frankenstein?
Nope.
Frau Blucher?
No. But no,
Sorry.
It adds a lot to it. And I'm looking forward to, again, the artwork is, that Dracula the artwork was so good that every one of them now we're going to be going, well, the story is great. The artwork's okay. But I think this artwork on Frankenstein it's not as good as the Dracula one, but it is a step up from kind of the serviceable but not over the top Creature from the Black Lagoon one. That to me, the artwork was okay. The story was really good. This one, I think it's going to be more like the story's good and the art's good too, but nothing touches the Dracula art. That series was phenomenally beautiful. So I don't think we'll see that again for a while. But
Speaking of Frankenstein, I found Mr. Magoo's Frankenstein.
Oh, cool.
And it is here on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I am thinking of maybe hosting a viewing party of Mr. Magoo's Frankenstein and Disney's Werewolf by Night.
Nice.
I just now have to find a vampire one.
Gotta ask though.
I'm trying to keep them relatively short. Magoo doesn't have a Dracula. And at first I thought, well, maybe I'll look on PBS and see if Wishbone had a Dracula. It's like, no, I don't think Wishbone ever did Dracula. For those who don't know, Wishbone was this great series that PBS did for children. It was to help introduce children to literature, where this Jack Russell Terrier would imagine himself as the hero of a particular novel. And I think what they did, Les Mis, they did a whole slew of them. They did Les Mis,
Robin
Hood. They did Treasure Island. And I think they had Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I think they did a version of that. I'm not sure. But, I think there's a Magoo Dr. Jekyll. I'm still trying to find it. But I would like to host like a viewing party for those of us crazy horror movie fans on the 31st of October to sit and say, hey, let's just watch these 3 really crazy movies and just eat popcorn in our homes and shout crazy things at the screen.
Have you ever seen the movie Dracula versus Frankenstein?
That's an old one, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
That's an old one.
But it's a B grade. It may be one that a lot of modern folks haven't. A version of Dracula they may not have seen. I don't know.
I introduced a group of my oldest son's friends to The Blob last year. We had so much fun. It's the
original or the remake? The original or the remake?
The original.
That's the better one of the two.
So
I didn't care too much for the remake. We
had the best time because this group, they're in their 30s. So they're used to cutting edge special effects and stuff. And it was like, this is where it all comes from. This is where these concepts, because it's really funny when I'm actually trying to find the original version of the Thing with James Arness as the Thing, because a lot of them are now discovering John Carpenter's movie with Kurt Russell, and they're thinking that's it. It's like, no, you have to see the originating story to understand exactly why Carpenter did his story this way. You need to understand, the source material. So you have to see also, because I keep thinking, I got to see if I can, I'm thinking what I might do on my channel is start pulling up, because a lot of them are watching, when they talk about watching classic films, they're not talking anything past 1982. They don't go any farther than, say, I think the farthest back they go is The Thing. When I see any of the younger generation watching, old, and they'll say, "Oh, we're watching classic movies." It's like, no, sweetie, you're.
They need to see things like Vertigo and Psycho,
or Metropolis. You guys should be watching Metropolis. You should be, so you understand. Or even, I think I have to check. I don't own a copy. And I don't know how easily Max will let me do a viewing of it. But, on Max, HBO Max, they have A Trip to the Moon. And I think they have an early black and white as well as a color version.
So now that was my question when you said what you're planning to show so far on Werewolf by Night. Will it be the black and white or the color version?
I would prefer the black and white, because the black and white has more of a universal feel to it, especially when you think about the humor in that piece and the pacing and stuff. I've seen the color. It takes away, seeing the flame tuba in black and white was like, whoa. Seeing it in color kind of diminishes it.
or
And
or or seeing Man Thing's eyes in the black and white version.
yes, it just the color I don't know what they were doing with the color grading, but it sort of diminishes things. Whereas the black and white, when you have those few moments where they add a touch of color, like to the stones and stuff, it adds to it. It gives greater weight. Whereas the color was like, oh, this couldn't have been any less interesting than if they'd done it in very pale grayscale. You know, it did, to me, it didn't add anything. You know, and if you're going to colorize something, it should add something to it. It shouldn't just sort of take it and go wash it out. It should add, you know, the
Blame
color
Ted
should be
Turner.
it should enhance it. Yeah, because that's one of the things that have always bugged me about Turner Classic Movies. When they were in their colorized thing, they were, you know, it's like it didn't enhance it. It didn't add anything. And it's like I actually like White Christmas. I'll admit it. I've loved that movie since I was a girl, and I grew up watching it in black and white. So, and when you're a kid, you don't get the whole thing about the blackface. And now they've color corrected it so that not only are the background dressers, because it was the background dressers who were in the extreme blackface, and then everybody in the foreground, Cosby and those guys, Vera Ellen, they didn't do them in blackface. They just gave them really lovely tans.
Okay.
And so now, and now you can't get those early black and white copies. So when you see it now, they've just sort of pinked them all out. They look exceptionally pink, and you're sitting there going, was there some, you know, if you didn't know, you'd be sitting there going, is there something wrong with the camera? Did they make a mistake in makeup? They're all this weird shade of pink, and then you have to explain that's because the men and women in the back are all in blackface, and Vera Ellen and Rosemary Clooney and those guys were like, well, we don't want to do this in blackface. So what they did was they were lightening Lena Horne up. They just darkened them down in a few shades. And I think what it is they decided before the NAACP could come after them. When Turner got his hands on them, he's like, we'll just wipe all that out. And then you have to explain to kids the true meaning of that part, you know, and trying to explain it to them and explain the whole, because a lot of this generation does not understand what a minstrel show is.
Again, they don't
Oh,
show. Yeah.
well, there are certain movies. Well, you know, Song of the South hasn't been aired in. You know, I've never ever
It's
seen
no longer in
anymore.
the Disney vault. It's no
Yeah,
longer. It's almost like Disney destroyed that movie.
I don't think it's destroyed, but I think it's yes, Carl. They created Max Factor created a color for Lena Horne when she was doing the movies called, you know, Light Egyptian, because they felt that she was still too dark.
Mm-hmm. And
It,
you have to understand, film back then it will pick that stuff up a lot better. That's the reason why there was so many African American actors that the whole thing about colorism came into effect because of the way that they filmed and the
yeah,
lighting that they used.
you know, because they also did it to the Nicholas brothers. You know, I've been watching people. A lot of the guys doing watching videos have started watching the Nicholas brothers, and it's like, you know, they were a lot darker. You know, as was Cap Galloway, but trying then to explain to people why they were made up this way and whatnot, and they look at you like, really? And it's like, okay.
I'm surprised that they didn't do it to Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
I think it would have been I think partly because I think Armstrong was not as willing to undergo that, you know. Um, and I will say that was the one thing about the remake of what is it, Philadelphia Story, the musical version with Bing Crosby, where because Armstrong, part of the backdrop of that is supposed to be that Crosby is there because the Newport Jazz Festival is going on, and Armstrong is one of the headline acts. So he's there to see Armstrong, which is what was supposed to be his cover story for going down there as he was coming to the jazz festival anyway. And though I have to say I like the original version of that movie with Hepburn and Gable because you don't have it. Having watched both movies, I would prefer the older version just because the newer version, there's about 5 minutes of the movie where I forget who plays the writer that falls in love with her, but she's driving him around Newport and she's showing him all of these houses that are now, she's talking about all these wealthy folks and they have these houses, and this of course is after the stock crash and then World War II, and a lot of these people are no longer as rich as they were. The only thing is that movie it's 5 minutes of preachiness about how we've let down the wealthy. All these great old houses are all boarded up now because all the people that have that money can't afford to live in them. And it's like, yeah, but those people still these were their summer homes. Newport was a summer town. These people had whole floors of buildings in New York City that they were living in.
That's the reason why it was so preachy, because people didn't understand, even in that economy, that it was summer homes. It's like, but our economy is suffering because they're not here. It's like, why would they be here? That's for summer.
That's the summer homes. But they were like, they can't afford to maintain these homes anymore. And it's like, yeah, but they still have their New York apartments. They still have their Long Island estates, and whatnot. They just don't have the Newport summer homes. It's just to somebody who didn't know that, would be sitting there watching that movie going, oh, those poor rich people. It's like, please. No. Oh, please.
No, because again, when it came back to summertime, they probably came back, they would unboard the house, they would have all these people come and fix up the house and everything. And by the time it got to fall, that's when it falls back down dilapidated again, and the cycle.
They boarded up.
That was just the economy of that particular region.
They boarded up. They spend fall in New York City. They go to Connecticut for the spring. They go to Newport for the summer, and then back to Connecticut for the winter.
All I'm saying is, Amity is a summer town. We rely on these tourists for our very lives.
and now we actually have something that we can import to, we can export it to the rest of the world. Vampirism. I would have loved to have seen that. It would have, whenever I watch Midnight Mess, I said mess, didn't I, instead of mass? I kind of think of Amityville.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of it takes the whole Amityville thing, and then it's like, because that's their plan. They're all going to be vampires, and then they're going to expand their fanky version of Christofascism to the world. It's like, oh my. Yes, I'm gonna be in trouble. I am now going to have to double check and make sure all my doors and windows are locked, or I'll wake up and find some, toothy dude standing over me going, "You called it midnight mass, lady?"
Well, I
Hey,
won't.
there's some scenes in
I'll,
that are messy, so that's okay.
yeah, yeah, it
It's
is.
funny. So.
Also, some things in there that were kind of stupid. There are a few things in there that were kind of stupid, and it's because it's like he comes back, he's just younger.
It's
You
like that's the
know,
problem with destroying history and film history. We forget about how things were and how they were sometimes better now. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think, and it's interesting because we have not, and I get it. There were things that the generation that came before ours would rather not talk about because they were more closely connected to it. I think it was on an Oprah where they had the parents or some the people who the little girl that was first sent to a white school, and I think they had the kids of the parents who were in her face on Oprah or something like that, and they were then talking about that. Oprah also had a show where some women who had made some really racist comments, Oprah then had them brought on her show, and then they had to go like, "Oh yeah, we did that." Well,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, well,
But it's a
when you
different day and age though too, because everything was I hate to say it was segregated back then. It really was. And it
but
was
I
more acceptable because the closer you were to home, it was more accustomed for that type of language to be commonplace.
yeah, because I look at the younger guys now when they use certain language, and you kind of go, dude, if you knew how it felt to hear that. Though I have to say, the first time anyone yelled the N word at me, we were living in Los Angeles. And I was walking my kids home from school, and this lady, we were crossing a side street, and she goes cutting through it to get on to the main road. And she's yelling at us, "How dare you step out on the road while I'm driving?" And I'm thinking, she's missing the sign that says crosswalk. you know, Pedestrian has right of way, but she's screaming at me because she had to stop or run us
Mhm.
over. And she was just livid. And then as she drove off, that's what she yelled, you know. And Charles looked at me like he was terror stricken, because it was like LA was supposed to be, everybody's LA was like, oh yeah, it's LA. It's LA. They don't do stuff like that there. It's like, you don't know LA very well. You'd be
I would hate
surprised.
I would hate to take your son to some of the places my dad took me down south,
Oh, I don't go down south for a reason, babe.
because that was my first experience with it. Because again, language in the north is completely different than language in the south. And when you hear it in the context of the south, it's
Oh,
a way different meaning. Way different meaning. It's not like how people use it nowadays as a greeting. It's not. It never was a greeting. If it was used down south, it was used to your detriment.
yes, it was to put you in your place.
Hmm.
You know, um, I just remember I went to boot camp in Paris Island, South Carolina, which is right across the bridge from Charleston. And I remember we got our when we finally got liberty. We were allowed to have when we were like, I think it was 2 days before our graduation from boot camp. They were like, "Hey, it's a Saturday. You can go into Charleston and just hang around." And I decided I wasn't going. And my DI, my senior drill instructor, she came to me and she said, "Hey, good, why aren't you going into town. It's like, I don't need to go there. And she was like, why don't you want to go? It's like, slaves built that town. All those lovely houses that you were telling people about and stuff, Black folks built that town. And they suffered building that town. Half starved, barely allowed to sleep. You know, it's like, no, why do I want to go see that town? The only reason I'm here is because this is where the government told me I had to go to boot camp. But, you know, even when I get my first duty station at Camp Lejeune, the only time I ever went out into Jacksonville was because I was with a group of people and we all went together to the bar. You know, but by myself, nope. It's like we got PXs, we got the USO Club. Everything I need is on base. I do not need to go out there.
Why do I picture that younger you had no chill? Somebody would step to you the wrong way. You had, nope, I ain't having it. I ain't having it.
A lot of people don't get it because Chicago is supposedly a blue city. That we had Cicero was a sundown town.
Mm-hmm.
Marquette Park was a sundown neighborhood, as was Bridgeport.
People still don't believe that Bridgeport is still that way.
Yeah, it's like along. There are certain stretches of Bridgeport because it's commercial, and the buses go by there. That it's relatively safe, so long as they can see that you're going from point A to B and you're not making any stops between. But that's not a place you want to live. You know, there's still parts that people don't realize. I used to party over on Rush Street, and the Gold Coast is not that far. And while, the Pump Room gave Oprah table number 1, and people were like, well, why is that such a big deal? Because it's a Black woman who is allowed to sit at a table where there's a telephone. The fact that they let her in, and then the fact that she gained enough celebrity where they gave her the premier table is a big deal. Because what people didn't realize was you had to be a big celebrity if you were Black just to be able to get into the Pump Room.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you would have to be like, and then half the time you had to have somebody white walk you in. You know, though the Pump Room is still behind one of my favorite stories. Phil Collins's album No Jacket Required is based on a story he used to tell when he was putting that album out. People say, well, why did you call it that? He said, because one night he and Robert Palmer were in Chicago. They were both performing, and they decided they wanted to go out to eat. And they had asked people, what's one of the better places to eat? And everybody said the Pump Room. And they went to the Pump Room, and and these are both English guys.
Mm-hmm.
So they're dressed nicely, except Palmer had, because that was the way it was the 80s, and a lot of guys were dressing this way. He had a lovely, I think it was a white silk shirt, tie, trousers, but he had a leather bomber jacket. And back in those days, the Pump Room had a rule. If you couldn't get into the Pump Room unless you were in a suit jacket. And it was one of those places, if you didn't have one, they have one of those.
They have one that they'll let you wear. Yeah, borrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was an upgraded version of the crappy jacket, but it was still kind of a crappy jacket. And they went, and of course, the doorman was like, I'm sorry, we can't let you in. And they're like, we're Phil Collins. You, hello, everybody knows who we are. We fill stadiums. And he's like, you're not properly attired.
Okay, Carl.
Like,
okay, Carl. Okay, Donna.
Oh, bye, guys. Hugs. And Leia is not here.
Nope. I don't know where
forgot
she's
to pray to the Ooty Booty. Oh no.
I don't know where she's at. I haven't heard from her today, so I don't know where she's at.
The last I saw was a couple of days ago. She posted.
No, I spoke to her yesterday, so I know that
okay.
she's around. I just don't know what she's doing today.
But the long and short of it is, they did not go. They did not get in because Palmer was like, "Well, show me the jacket," and of course, it was a crappy looking jacket. And people, this man has great taste, and I'm sure he looked good in what he was wearing. And for whatever reason, the maitre d' just decided he was going to be a butthole. But they turned around and walked out. They were like, if we can't get in dressed as we are and we're who we are, well, we just won't come. And so when he was working on the album and they were trying to work out a title for it, he says, we're going to call it No Jacket Required. And it was kind of, for the longest time, it was him and Robert Palmer's little joke to each other.
Nice.
It's like, and I'm thinking, great, you made the British walk out. Because the end of the argument was because he's like, I'm Robert fucking Palmer. And the maitre d' was like, I don't care if you're Jesus fucking Christ. If you're not dressed properly, you're not getting in. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So yes, we but that was in its heyday. I've had people tell me it's gone considerably downhill since then. The pump room has gone considerable downhill.
Because they're not getting that British rock and roll buck.
Yeah.
I don't teach them.
I used to dream of getting rich and famous enough so that I could walk into the Lion Club. I don't know if you remember the Lion Club on Michigan Avenue, Joe.
Whereabout?
The block north of the Drake. Those businesses. There used to be a place called the Lion Club, and it used to say no women allowed. Black glass with gold.
I remembered the area. I just didn't pay attention to the layout.
But they used to have a sign on there, even in the 80s, that said no women allowed. So and they were very proud of the fact that that the Lion Club did not allow women, unless they were paying you to be there. That's part of pop culture, y'all.
It's culture of the time of people who were really doing like the muckety muck clubs.
It was also really interesting because this was also the time of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I'm about to get ready to say like that was still during the time that we still had a Playboy Mansion here.
That's true. That's true. That's true. The main Chicago, because Chicago was where they got started. But there were things, I think there were certain things Hef couldn't do here that he could get away with a lot easier in California. So they moved the operation there, which was funny because they were celebrated here. He used to have Channel 32 or 26 used to have Playboy at night. Weekly show on the weekends. Because I remember Crosby, they used to have, he used to feature a lot of Black talent. Bill Cosby was on there. I keep forgetting his name. Heavyset gentleman. He had Nipsey Russell. and there's another guy, heavy set, and I can never remember his name, a comedian. He was in.
I can't think of the only thing I can remember is like if there was not filming in the Chicago mansion, it was on the Big Bunny on the airplane. They were filming it on the airplane, the Big Bunny.
I don't think I saw. The only shows I think I ever saw were in the Chicago mansion, and I didn't get to watch that many of them because of when they came on. So the only time I ever got to watch them was like if my mom was out, because if she was home, I couldn't watch them.
But it was weird because it felt more like how like you had like the Dean Martin roast, except that it was more laid back. I mean, it was like being in a actual lounge with actual famous people being there.
It was kind of like the Rowan and Martin's be-in party. Mm-hmm. Whenever they had Laugh-In, they had the parties.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think, because I was a kid and stupid, I used to dream of getting to the point where I could become an adult and go to parties like that, where people would be dancing around and saying really funny, witty things. And then, you get to that age, you start going to parties and there's nothing like that. It's like, where are these smart, witty people? And people go, oh, you have to go to New York for that,
and if you get to New York, you don't want to be a part of that scene because it's not the same.
Well, I didn't know about, because I used to think that because Michael Jackson, Brooke Shields, Tatum O'Neal, and other child stars were being allowed into, what's the name of that disco?
Studio 54.
Yeah, where you would see the magazines and there would be Michael Jackson dancing with Brooke Shields, or you'd see, I was wanted to go to Studio 54 because I was a big fan of Mikhail Baryshnikov. So I went to go just to watch him, dance. It's like, oh, is he going to jump around as Jete? It's like, because he and Liza Minnelli used to go and dance all the time. There were always, you would see in the magazines, there always be pictures of him and Liza Minnelli getting down at Studio 54, but you'd also see pictures of Michael Jackson. You would also see Brooke Shields there. And I used to think, because all these kid actors and whatnot were allowed in the club, it was just a great place to go dancing. It wasn't until I got older and then found out what was going on in the back room.
See, they got in because they were celebrity. That was Studio 54 was about. It was about your celebrity.
Yeah.
But once you hit that level of celebrity, you have to be aware of that back room. That back room was unrelenting. And the stories that came out was like, yeah, I'm glad I never had that inkling to be a part of that set. It's like, nope.
I used to go dance on to a lot of the clubs on Rush Street. So the idea of, one of these days I'll become a rich writer and then I'll put Studio 54 and I'll be like all smart and everything. So I didn't know about the best, and like I said, I very stupidly believed, because you had all these young celebrities there who should not have been in a bar, because we grew up at a time when if you were under the age of 21, you couldn't go into certain places because, even if it was a bar that served food, you weren't allowed to go in there. You weren't even allowed to perform in certain venues like that because they served alcohol. So I was like, okay, I know they serve drinks and stuff, but it can't be, how bad can it be? And then you find out and it's like, but the thing is what gets me is how could you let your child, because I get it. Now it's like, okay, this was a publicity thing. This is a publicity thing. Just like in order to get in the club, they had the guy standing out there. And if you didn't look a certain way and present a certain way, didn't matter if you had the money, you weren't coming in. It was the rich and famous, and then the more interesting people You had to be extremely attractive and well dressed and whatnot. There were all these weird, and it all depended on whoever was guarding the door that night. Excuse me, would decide who could and couldn't get in if they weren't already on the list of who to allow in. You know, but when you're younger and you're seeing this, you're not thinking, because my first thought is, why would their parents let them do this?
Yeah, it wasn't about the parents. It was always about publicity. That was the thing that when I hear about people like Brooke Shields and everybody going to Club 54, even the more established older talent, they would never say that I'm going there to drink or going there to dance. They would say I went there because there was something going on publicity wise
It
that
was
I
the
wanted
place
to
to
be
be.
a part
It
of.
was the place to be seen.
Right. So if he was there when somebody else was popping off real big, you could say I was amongst that crowd and I could tell you what's going on. And you could keep your name in the news that way because of the publicity.
But it's still sad because, there's this whole generation of young talent that basically, because when I think about Michael Jackson as an adult, I think maybe if he hadn't been exposed to certain things along the way, life may have been a bit different for him. He might still be alive if he hadn't gone, if there were certain things he hadn't been exposed to at a young age.
I wouldn't say that. At least not when it comes to that aspect with Club 54. If he was exposed to other things just in general in life, I would agree with that.
I guess the whole thing, especially if you think about the Jacksons, um, especially since they were supposed to be not Seventh-day Adventists, they were the other group, the ones that keep predicting the world will end in 20 years.
Oh, I can't even think.
Jehovah's Witnesses. They were Jehovah's
Ah.
Witnesses. And they have such intense strictures about their religion, because girlfriend Grimes, who did Get Whitney Love,
Mhm.
was a Jehovah's Witness, and they were they were on her a lot about language or her costumes on this series. You can only dress like this. In fact, I think she got in a lot of trouble for her pilot episode because of how she was dressed. She was wearing a very short skirt, and back then those rabbit skin jackets were all the rage. The patch fur jackets, they were rabbit skin. So she had on a rabbit skin jacket that was belted and this short skirt, and the lucite heels, and she's walking because she's supposed to be a prostitute. And a guy propositions her, she turns him down. He screams the N word. She screams it back, lover, and keeps going. And if you saw the pilot for the first time, you hear the exchange. And then anytime after that, they had to block it out. And I know her church group specifically got on her about certain ways they made her dress and act, about, oh, that's not, I know she had talked about constantly having to deal with what the network wanted her to do and what the church wanted her to do. Because the Osmonds went with it with the Mormons. They were constantly, well, the church requires this, and the Mormons, and the Osmond and Papa Osmond was like, we make their money. You can complain, but then we don't have as much to put in the collection basket. So, we tithe. So shut up. But even then, there were like strictures that they had those kids under. And I think for Jackson, because it was like while his church said these things, there were things that he was allowed. And I think it was this sort of the hypocrisy of it all. The church says this, but because of who I am, I'm allowed to do that.
It was with the younger kids that it felt kind of hypocritical, because he was allowed to do certain things, Janet was allowed to do certain things, Latoya was allowed to do certain things, but the older boys were not.
Yeah, because they were the real stars. They were the real stars. Because at one point it looked like when they had their series on CBS, because the Osmonds had ABC, and so they put the Jacksons on CBS. And at one point it looked like Latoya was going to be a star in her own right. Then when Randy and Janet were on the series, they were hoping, they were grooming both of them. It's just Janet proved the bigger star, and Randy kind of faded like the rest of the brothers, because the Osmonds were the same way. It was like it was the older brothers, and then Donnie started breaking out, then Marie, then Jimmy. They thought Jimmy was going to be a big star, and then it was like they're not really responding to Jimmy. And it just became Donnie and Marie. And the rest of the Osmonds went to, what is that town? Branson, Missouri. It's supposed to be Vegas if you don't want to do alcohol. Like, yeah, the only place.
That's fair. That's fair. It's fair assessment. I wouldn't call it that, but it's a fair assessment. Would you say, Clyde?
That's a generalization, but not inaccurate, I think. Yeah.
I drove through Branson once, and it just kind of felt like, it's like, okay, it's got lights and stuff like Vegas. It's just not, it's like what Mayberry would think Vegas was like. This is what Vegas was like if Andy Griffith and his group were running it. Just
wow, because I was just up here just thinking to myself, it's like, if she feels that way about Branson, it's like with Nashville being like the capital of country music, would that be like the Las Vegas of country music to her? It's like, I just don't know. That's why
I guess to me, Nashville was a little different, because we got so much in Nashville on TV. Every year, I think 2 or 3 times a year, there was a big country music special where they would have, like, I think you would have one in the summer, you would have one around Thanksgiving, someone big might have one around Christmas, and invite like half of, the big stars of Nashville to perform on it. So you had at least 3 big Nashville shows a year. And they all seemed by the time I was 12, I knew the words to, what's that song? Rocky Top by heart. Because every Nashville special ended with them singing Rocky Top. I never saw a Nashville special that didn't end with them singing. They either took the very end for Rocky Top or some sort of gospel song. I think at one point they quit doing Rocky Top and started doing gospel. And then it kind of fell out of favor, especially as the newer, was it Tanya Tucker, and then the newer ones after her didn't seem as interested in doing those Nashville specials because they weren't what you would call traditional country. And the Nashville specials were all traditional country. So I knew about that. I mean, anybody with a television knew who Minnie Pearl was. So, and her hat with the
tags, with the sale tag,
sale tag on it. I mean, I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood who didn't know who Minnie Pearl was. So those were the things, and that's something that we don't. And I get part of it's because culture has changed. Because back and then, cartoons had classical music. If you wanted strictly classical music, you watch Bugs Bunny. If you wanted symphonic jazz, you watch Tom and Jerry.
Well, Chuck Jones, Tom and Jerry.
The old
I have to clarify that because, again, Tom and Jerry had a lot of the classics, but Chuck Jones was the symphonic jazz.
Oh, I grew to love symphonic jazz because of those classic old Tom and Jerry's. I developed a taste for symphonic jazz. I developed an interest in opera because of What's Opera Doc.
Me and my high magic well bit.
Kill the rabbit
of great fighting star. Might I be able to inquire what's up?
One of my favorites that they did, and it's funny because I bring it up and a lot of people seem to don't. When Camille Cesson, who at that point was one of the premier composers of the 20th century, did the Carnival of the Animals on CBS. He did a special with Warner Brothers. And it was kind of like their version of Fantasia. So each specific movement of that piece was done had been animated by Warner Brothers.
Okay.
It was absolute. I remember watching that, just going, oh.
I want to do that. I really want to
basically do that. I couldn't tell if I wanted to do the animation or the music or both. It was one of those things that just kind of reached into my brain and went bing.
When I think of Warner Brothers and operatic singing, I also think of Leopold. Oh, it's Leopold. Oh, Leopold, with the one guy that's doing like the one-man show. And he's got it's not an operatic play, but he's building out opera songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I always think of that one too, because of the, he holds the glove up there. The guy's got to maintain the note, and he's turning red and blue and red and green, and
which is is it the Tex Avery one? It was on the Tom and Jerry show. It's the opera singer. It's two dogs. It's the big bulldog who's the opera singer.
It was Spike and this little bitty dog who got into the orchestra pit, and he was supposed to be the orchestra conductor. Well, and he had this magic baton from this one,
because he was a magician. And Spike insulted him, and so he decided he was going to take over for the conductor
with the magic wand.
Oh my God! I even now, it's just stuff. If you have not, and I gotta find the title of it. If I find it,
I don't know the title of it, but I remember a
or he's the check. And
in the middle of the opera, he would point the magic wand out, and he would change from opera to a different character, doing a different genre of music.
The Hawaiian war chant thing with all the bunnies. Oh my God. He's singing Figaro from the Marriage of Figaro. Figaro high, Figaro. And he's doing, hey, Figaro. And bunnies are just popping on his arms. He's trying to sing and knock these bunnies off, and they keep popping up. And the Hawaiian war chant section. It's just bunnies are on any side of it. Holy crap! It is tour de force.
And when I think of Tom and Jerry music, I don't know why they played this one a lot when I was a kid, but If I could win a Corden, he did right.
Uncle Pecos. Uncle Pecos. Cornbread with an A, he did right. Crumble.
Oh, broke a guitar string. Dang! Ah! Take the cat's whisker and
Do you have
tune
another
his
guitar string
guitar.
nephew? Oh, never mind. I see one over here.
That one in Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby.
Doom, 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 doom.
Is you is or is you ain't my baby. I just
that one was funny.
I
Then
love those
Texas
because,
Tom.
oh,
When you're down in Texas, look me up. Yeah. If you're ever down in Texas, look me up. Yeah. When the men are men and strutting and the women are something. If you're ever down in Texas, look me up.
The one thing that Disney did at that time, I mean, I love Fantasia, especially the original. But one of the few things that Disney did at that time that was just as good was when they did the jazz version of The Flight of the Bumblebee. And I keep trying to find the animation for it. I haven't found it. It's an animated thing that Disney put out. They used to show bits of it on Wonderful World of Disney. And occasionally we would, excuse me, when they showed Mr. Toad, the Mr. Toad ones, occasionally we would get that. And that was just, it was post Fantasia, and it's like, okay, somebody, Disney just took his animators into a room full of cocaine, made them snort, listen to the music, and said, okay, you can't come out until you've given me something. And this is what they came. It's like a cocaine fever dream with this poor little bee and piano keys. You've never seen it?
I still feel the best thing that came out of Fantasia, animation wise, that's dealing with music, and I haven't seen it ever since, was Peter and the Wolf.
There is a new version that came out. The newest version that I saw that I liked had to come out about. It was pre-pandemic that came out. That was really decent. And
I remember the old one.
The old, the old version is amazing, and I love it. But there is a newer version that's not bad. I won't say it's absolutely amazing, but it's not bad. But yeah, I remember the few times. I think the first time I saw the animated Peter and the Wolf had to be second grade. Because I think before that they felt it was a little too, the wolf was too scary.
Mm-hmm. Because the music would go that low, and that tone of, you could tell when the wolf is being sneaky and everything, and you could feel the tone of the story.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it is that I used to own the record, so I used to play the record and not read the story, and just look at the pictures, and you could imagine the animation a little bit better. Because to me, as long as there was no narration, that story to me was a lot more powerful. Just listening to the music and just watching it.
It's I remember seeing when the hunters show up, and I remember being in second grade and the hunters show up, and kids in my class are like, yeah, go get them, hunters, go get them. A couple of little girls may have fainted when they thought, I think the cat was Sasha. I keep forgetting what the duck.
Sasha the cat.
Sasha's the cat. The duck is the one they think gets killed. There's the section where the duck is a little too brash, and it looks like the wolf may have got it. And then we find out that
it got hit by the wolf. It got hit by the wolf, but I don't think he died.
We find out he hasn't died, but the way they animate it, because all you see after the wolf goes after him, there's like bushes, and then you just see a feather. You just see that single green feather that comes floating down. And I and several of the girls in my class were, I think, had some serious fits. You know, it's like,
Like I said, I still remember for the record. It's like once you get past the narration about what each sound was, like it was a certain pop for when Peter pulls the trigger on his gun, it makes a certain
yes,
sound. Sasha the cat makes a certain sound, and it follows a certain melody. The duck has a certain melody. Peter
well,
has a certain melody. The wolf has a certain melody, and the hunters have a certain melody. Once
there.
you understood that, you could turn off all the sound and you would know exactly what's going on with the story.
I'm trying to remember. There was a group. One of their big hits was "Never Mind Love." I think it was. They sang Peter's theme from one of they. I forgot what album they put it on, but they actually did sing Peter's theme from that Peter and the Wolf. And I think I heard it on the radio only a couple of times. You know, when it was like, okay, it's late night, we got nothing better to put on. We'll just put this on before Dr. Demento. I miss Dr. Demento.
If it wasn't for Dr. Demento, we would never have Weird Al Yankovic.
Yes. Yes. He was definitely he was definitely the heir to Dr. Demento. And of course, Dr. Demento, Pencil Neck Geek was a favorite song. Existential Blues, you know. A girl came and said, "Leon, what's your sign?" I blinked and told her neon. I think it blew a mind. You know, that and Dead Puppies. The Dead Puppy song is a favorite of mine. Every once in a while, I'll walk to the house yelling the Dead Puppy song. And, that just becomes like my sons will just look at each other and find places in the house to kind of get into and not talk to me. It's like she's singing Dead Puppies. We don't want to know her right now. My puppy died late last fall. He's still rotting in the hall. Dead puppies aren't much fun.
It could be worse. You could be going around singing "My Bologna."
Oh.
My Bologna.
Hey, dead puppies never seen in Italian restaurants drinking cappuccino with Oriental women. Yeah. Oh no, that's fish heads. Sorry, no, that's fish heads. That dead puppies and fish heads are two favorites. I don't know if you ever heard fish heads, roly poly fish heads, fish. I got
Eat them up, eat them up now.
Eat them up, yum. I learned that song because when I was in Okinawa, they there are before you're allowed out the gate. Once you get in, you have to go through a legal debriefing, so you understand how not to get arrested by the Japanese police. And I was there with a group of wise asses because the lieutenant who had the unfortunate job of debriefing us on the legalities of being on foreign soil was saying, if you do something and you get on the base, that will not stop the Japanese police from coming after you. They have the right to come onto the base and arrest you and take you away. Well, you'll be in the Japanese prison, and if you're lucky, the best you'll eat is fish heads and rice. To which three of the guys behind me stood up and went, fish heads, roly poly fish heads. And this lieutenant just went right in the face. And especially when they got to the eat them up.
Oh my goodness. I could just see the lieutenant ready to be like, yep, let me find out who they are. They might get visited in the night.
But I love fish heads. The first verses, I took a fish head into a movie, didn't have to pay to get it in. It's the insanity you live for.
Mm-hmm.
At least, in my neighborhood. Joe lives where sane people are. So it's probably very different there.
That was Air Force, so it's like I was like I understood where things are coming from that point of view, but it was expected of us to be more prim and proper. And yeah, I'm glad that you laughed because we felt the same way too. We would laugh at that too. It's like, yeah, it's like, okay, it's like we got the colonel in front of us. We can't cut up right about now, but as soon as he turns his back, it was on like Donkey Kong. We're not taking it seriously.
We used to go to this one Air Force bar when I was in Okinawa. There's this one Air Force bar we used to go to sometimes to drink and dance. It's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know. I think we went to the Air Force bar, and then we went to this other basis, NCO Club. The Air Force bar is where I used to get in fights. You know, because I had there were 12 of us. 2 of us were women. The other 10 were big guys. And our job was to go get a table for 12 people. And it'd be all these squids there. So, you know, my job was go find the squids, snuggle up. Bam. Jump up.
and like I said, you being younger and a lot
stupid.
faster, be like, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing okay. How you doing? I'm doing fine. I want you to be my friend. Oh, where's your friend?
The conversations were never that long. It was just be sitting there. Hi, how are you? How you doing? You fine? Bam! Sucker punch him, jump up while his friends are laughing at him. All my friends have shown up.
Probably threw out his booth, and y'all had that area.
And we had a table. And they knew it. The people who ran the bar knew it. They just, so long as we didn't kill anybody or seriously injure, we were allowed to do it. You know, there she is. Oh, so she. Okay.
Well, like, wow, the first thing she said.
I'm
like,
done.
wow.
Okay, fine. I ain't got nothing else to say. Let it be that, you know, Leia take over the show.
It's like, hi, Clyde. It's like, I love that you changed your Batman poster on the door every show. No, the poster. She's talking about the poster on the doors changes a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's Batman month, so I thought that would be a good choice for a few shows here.
Well, at least, Leia, you're here for comic book reviews. I don't have a review, but I do have like a strange pickup of the week, which is this. Hold on, let me get the big screen here.
There we go.
Ta-da.
Suburban Jersey. Oh, okay.
Now, this is a series that only went one issue. I could understand why. It's not a bad story. It's just there was just so much that happened that they knew that it was a one shot. They knew that they were just trying to do this as a one shot to see if there was interest. But I would talk about that at a different time because I want to be more in depth as far as the detail behind it. And now she's up here. It's like all huggles now. She didn't mean it like that. She didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
No, it's okay. I'm fine.
And great, Clyde making me spend more money. Yep, that's his job. His job is to get you interested in books. And that reminds me, I still have to do episode 2 of collecting comics in 1 minute.
Okay.
And no, it's like episode 1 was simply this: buy a comic book that you like, read it, start your comic book collection.
Don't mess it up.
You'd be surprised that 75%. I got a 75% rating so far on that video. Not a whole bunch of people liked it, and then it's like people were looking at it like, yeah, right. You know, that's it's like, but I only have 1 minute. What do you want me to say in 1 minute? I'm not going to give you a dissertation of this is how you're supposed to do it and how you're supposed to grab all these books at one time. It's like, no, start with one. If you like it, good. If you don't, then might try something else. So now episode 2, it's like, okay, now you got a comic book or two that you like. This is how you go about the steps here. You have to figure out, is it a newer title? And if you caught at issue number 1, then you know that you could go back to that same story to get issue 2 or 3. But if it's an older book, you might run into some problems, and I will cover that stuff here and try to do it up under 1 minute.
Otherwise, Joe sounds like the Micro Machine Man, and that's not going to happen.
I haven't tried to do that at all in a long time, and I don't think I can make sense if I ever did it.
You want to go first, Clyde, or you want me?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can't show this because I know. Okay, here we go. This is Onward Bound, Once Upon a Time in Roughside. This is Chapter 0, Among Thieves, by my friend Derek Chen. Derek has produced several Onward Bound books. His work is inspired in many ways by manga. Let's see if I can hold that up so people can see it. And the easiest way to describe the Onward Bound series is if D&D, if Tolkien and Louis L'Amour decided to write a book together, because you've got elves and dwarves and humans and orcs and goblins in the Wild West. So you kind of have a steampunkish Wild West setting, but you have characters that, of course, are endemic to both Tolkien and D&D. And Derek combines these characters, and it's great. It's an interesting way. Rough Side is a bad neighborhood in a decent Western city. And I'm going to read what's on the back of the book. Let's see if I can get it. And it's probably going to be backwards. Because I think this is a great introduction. Down in the depths of the city where the scoundrels and the hooligans roll, there's no grace, no mercy, no pity, as despair and hope fight for your soul. Baby, welcome to Rough Side. And life can be hard in Rough Side, the toughest, harshest slum in the frontier city of St. Graves. Here, survival hinges as much on luck as it does wits amidst the gang's corruption and street side violence. Meet Rad Risk, the quickest, slickest, and just plain craftiest young rogue in all of Rough Side. Rad enjoys a carefree life, getting by on charm, smarts, and petty thievery. Just another young scoundrel doing what he can to get by without anyone getting hurt, especially himself. But things get complicated as Rad finds himself entangled in a plot involving dwarven gangs, treacherous elves, and a peacekeeping force called the Justicars. Together with his friends Vanny, the back alley brawler, and Trace, the street magician, Rad begins a search for the most valuable prize of all, the one thing that can't be bought, sold, or stolen in Rough Side. It is not the most amazing art, and it's not poetry, but it's a good read. It's fun, and best of all, it's family friendly. If you had kids you wanted to get into comics without starting at like Baby Huey or Casper the Ghost or any of the classic child titles, say you want to get your kid who's maybe 9 or 10, maybe he's not reading the more adult DC or Marvel books, but you want him to read something that deals with different things, but deals with them in a way that's not gory or over sexualized. There's no cussing and they say dang it. They say words like dang it a lot in DC's books because he is a Christian, but he's not a preachy Christian, which is one of the things I love about him. But it is a fun read. I've enjoyed going through his books. I will be going through his books in the next coming weeks. And actually, this is the book or the sequel to this book that I'm going to propose that I do a more in-depth review of for the Comics for Kids. So wish me luck.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's Derek Chen. It is on the Onward Bound series. Panda Rage Productions is the publisher. And Derek is on Facebook, DC Chen. You can find him on Facebook. That's CHEN. And go up there. Tell him Elaine told you to look him up and ask him about his work. I know he has another book he's working on, as well as he's developing tabletop RPG because he loves tabletop RPGs. But that's my book.
Yay! Sounds good.
And there we go. I think I made somebody laugh with my last statement, but I don't think that person would have a quick comeback for that one.
And no, okay. That's me as a newbie watching your miniature. Okay. Y'all gonna overthrow Ethan and the Dude Bros, huh? I want to be there. I have to know when y'all are doing this, just so I can show up with my meat cleaver, tapping it on my hand. Yeah, Dude Bros, you got something to say? I'm the gatekeeper. You want to get them? Come through me.
And don't come in here without a jacket. And don't come in here without a jacket on, doggone it.
Jackets are required.
That's
the
right.
correct jacket
are required.
And if you don't have a jacket, I have to make you wear a bib.
I feel sorry for people. Well, put it this way. I feel sorry for like 1980 Steve Stone, who always used to wear members only jackets.
Oh my goodness, those members only jackets.
Like, that's not the right type of jacket. You're gonna have to take that off and put this on.
No. I got my oldest, a friend helped me. We got my oldest, the red jacket Michael Jackson wears in the Thriller. They had those jackets for sale for a short time, and we got it on sale for my oldest because he really he had watched that video, because back in the day, what was it MTV used to do premiere videos, and Michael and Janet were top of the list whenever they had a video premiering. MTV would be all over it. Mm-hmm. In fact, when she did Rhythm Nation, she shot a series of videos, like a mini movie, specifically for MTV that they did, because it wasn't just a video, it was an event.
Especially with what Thriller was that way.
Thriller,
Escape was that way.
Escape.
Rhythm Nation was that way.
Yeah, Rhythm Nation had I think Rhythm Nation was 6 or 7 songs from the album that she did videos for specifically, and they were all built around a specific narrative. Hers was violence on the street. And it was all built around that, and how, we couldn't fix this until we did it as a community.
Yep. Exactly.
That's why it was so good, Leia, because, Landis did it. I think because this was after American Werewolf, which is why Jackson wanted him specifically, because he wanted that concept, and getting... But I think one of the best things about that video, I think what helped make that video, what put it over the top, was Vincent Price. The only other person I think who could have made that narration and unfortunately he was already dead, was Peter Lorre.
Probably,
Peter
yeah.
Lorre is the only other person I think who could have done that narration and given it that weight, you know. But it was he put it over the top, and I love the fact that he would tell the story of when they came and asked him
across the land.
Yes, y'all's neighborhood. Hearing Vincent Price to say terrorize y'all's neighborhood.
No, Lori saying that would be
Oh,
scary.
that would just, I mean, but to hear
neighborhood, I like, oh, like, oh, that's like that. That's like it goes from like not being scary to like creepy, eerie. Like,
oh,
I don't want to be in the hood.
Close at hand.
You couldn't, you would not be able to listen to that alone at night if Peter Lorre had done the narration for that. That's something you could not, they would, I mean, and every shock jock would have played it at midnight just to freak folks out.
Yeah.
You know, but I just think and I love that narration. I love how he does it, and I've always wondered who could have done it as well, and the only one I could come up with was Peter Lorre, because you have to put something into it that elevates it and makes it more intense. And that laugh at the end, you know, just I love the fact, and you can tell by the way he's doing it, he's having fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's and you know, and it's sad that was one of the I think he did that, and then the next thing he did after that was Edward Scissorhands. I think that was the last thing he did.
Yeah, that's right.
I think
Scissorhands was after 13 Ghosts.
Yeah. Was he in 13 Ghosts? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
He was in the original TV series, but he wasn't in the movie.
He wasn't in the movie with Tony
all
Shalhoub.
The Curse of the 13 Ghosts.
He was in, yeah. He wasn't in the movie because my youngest watched just 13 Ghosts because he really likes Tony Shalhoub. And when he was little, he watched, because it was like, sweetie, this is a monster movie. He's like, Tony Shalhoub. I'm like, okay. And we would talk about, he's like, he's a good daddy. He saves he wants to save his kids. Good daddy. And that's why he watched it. And it's like, okay, it's like, but sweetie, this scary ghost. It's like, he's a good daddy. And that lady helped. The lady helped. And it's like, got it. He's a good daddy, and the housekeeper is brave and cool, and she helps them survive. And it's like, you know what? It got him through the movie. He didn't have any nightmares. That's how he viewed it. And it's like, I'm here for you. You know, he only watches it if I'm with him. And he hasn't watched it in a few years. You know, but it was like, if he only watches it when he's in the mood to see, if he can't see a rerun, because I think Monk,
right?
Yeah,
he was seeing him in Monk and really liked Monk, and it had come on TV after Monk was already on TV. When we saw it on TV.
Where was his thought of Tony Shalhoub on with Men in Black? All the different Men in Black.
He's the guy, they shoot him and it grows back.
His head grows back, yeah.
His head grows back, yeah.
You know, and they saw that when they were kids and they thought it was really funny. But it took him a while to think, you know, I had to explain that was Tony Shalhoub. Because it's the makeup and everything, so it doesn't exactly look like him.
Like Monk. He doesn't look like Monk in those scenes. Just like he didn't look like Monk. I think he was also a part of Wings, the sitcom Wings. Yeah.
He was he did Wings, and then he got Monk after Wings. And I think he and Tim Daly are the only. It was interesting. The girl from that series was considered the breakout star. But after that series, her career kind of went sort of stalled and went nowhere.
Okay, so she's saying if the narration had a list of top five, it would be Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and James Earl Jones.
No, not James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones, I'm not saying he wouldn't have done a great job of it, but to give it that sort of scary creepiness, I'm going to come get you in the night. I just don't see Jones delivering that.
Peter Lorre
No.
would be number one on that list.
Yeah, right
There's
after
no
Vincent
way in the
Price.
world you cannot tell me that that voice would not give you nightmares.
Especially if you'd ever watch Arsenic and Old Lace. You know, they have five, Johnny. You have five. You know, it's like the old ladies are as good. That's what I need to put on my list for Halloween. Arsenic and Old. It's Halloween. It's done on Halloween night. It's the perfect Halloween movie.
Oh, you
That is
despise me, don't you, Rick?
Okay, Jack Jeeves, but she said that yeah, he did play in the
He did
Treehouse of
Raven in
Horror,
Treehouse of Horror.
but that was still more comedy than
Yeah,
horror. Christopher Lee, okay, I give that. Peter Cushing, I'll give you that.
but no, I just can't see. I'm sorry. And I love me some James Earl Jones, you know. And I go
See, that's the
back.
thing. Would Bela Lugosi be able to
Oh
bring?
my goodness.
Because that would be
Lugosi.
that's who I would replace James Earl Jones with. Would be Bela Lugosi.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I go with that.
Lugosi, especially in you know, in his actual without so much the Dracula-ness, just in his regular accent,
Mhm.
it would take you to another realm. You know, it'd be like, you want me to open a vein, baby? Come on. All right, Fang Daddy, just take you.
Martin Landau as
No,
Bela.
no, 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 not in your wildest dreams.
See, the one thing that I could say about Vincent Price and watching like older Vincent Price movies, I will still stick to my guns with this. Out of all of Vincent Price horror movies, the only one that I believe is the most scariest is the one that most people think is the weakest, and that is the Tingler.
When John and I watched The Tingler, I hadn't seen it since I was a kid because
Mhm.
it's one of those movies they don't play a lot. But a few years back, Son of Svengoolie had it on, and we watched it together. And I made him laugh because there's that scene was like they're trying. Oh my god, is that the Tingler? And I jumped and grabbed John and went tickle 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 tickle. It's like I don't think that Tingler works that way.
No, it doesn't work that way, but it medically so, and this is the thing that reason why I say to me that is the scariest because medically so, there is a link between not being able to cry out and the human heart condition as far as not being able to express terror.
Yeah.
People have been known to die from it. And to me, it was like more of a psychological horror, and people just don't understand that.
And the
Then
first
plus
filming of
that
a
was during the
psychedelic.
day where they used to have like what do they call it? The movie seats that had like the joy buzzers up in it and
Oh
shocking
yeah,
people and
you would, and
everything. They
they
wanted
would
to
set
make
him
it
off,
more.
and we're scaring and freaking folks out. I think they have that. They did it for that. The first earthquake when they were doing in the 70s when they were doing the big event disaster films. They did something similar with the movie Earthquake. A couple of the bigger theaters, I think they did it. It was at either the Chicago, the United Artists, where the seats shifted slightly when the quake hit. There were theaters where they had rigged it so the seats shifted quite a bit slightly, but I think they had to stop it because folks were seriously freaking out.
Mhm.
You know, thinking there was a real. Just think of some poor family in Boise, Idaho, watching it the first time, and the quake hits and their seats start shifting.
I don't know, but to me, it's just like I felt I felt sorry for the mute because again, with everything that was going on, and it's like, they had to represent that sensation with an actual creature, and that was the thing. The reason why I say it's more of like a psychological horror because the creature really doesn't exist, and the fact that she was mute, it was nothing that she can do to yell out.
Yeah.
She couldn't make a sound. Even though as much as she tries to yell, and you could tell that she was trying to yell.
That's one I haven't seen. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've seen that one since I was about 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe since I've seen that one.
That's just like, I remember old things with Vincent Price, like when he used to host a game show called Who Done It.
That one I don't think I ever saw.
It pretty much the way that it works is that it was the concept that they had for him is that it was kind of like a memory game, and the way that it works is that they actually played out mystery scenes in front of you.
Oh, okay, and then you had to figure out who the actual
it's
person
like you
who
had
did.
to answer a certain amount of questions in a row to get to the point of who actually done it.
Oh, okay, so very Occam's razor.
Mm-hmm.
Look that up, y'all.
Yep. So it's like, back then in like the 1950s, it's like top prize of like $200 to $500 was max that you could win. So it was, it was what it was.
1950s, $250, you could pay your rent, buy groceries, and still have $20 left for a date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's like you need to watch Good God.
Oh, yes. I remember that one. That one hasn't been around in ages either. That one. And what was it? Is Of Mice and Men the one with Raymond Burr? No, that's the one with Cheney. There's a movie with Raymond Burr where he kidnaps a girl. And they have to get the girl away. They have to rescue the girl. He kidnaps a girl. He's a murderer or something. He ends up kidnapping the girl. And I can't remember it fully because I think the last time I watched it, I was like 12 or 13. And
Godzilla.
No, it wasn't Godzilla.
He said Godzilla.
I never trusted that Steve Martin reporter guy. I tell you what.
Do you have a book for us, Clyde?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he got his picks of the week. So she's saying, go ahead. It is your turn.
Okay. So there was a lot of good stuff this week. Gotcha Man number 3. And I was going to ask you, Joe, was there ever in the Gotcha Man version of the cartoon, did they ever have a backup team? Like if the G-Force had been taken out, they had other people in the wings to take over?
Yes, the organization did.
Okay. Did you ever see them or did they just talk about them?
They talked about them. I think we only saw 1 or 2 of the backups.
Okay.
And
well, they're making it a thing.
I have never
this.
seen a backup for Ken, but there was a backup for Joe that has been seen before, and a backup for June.
Okay. Well, they make an appearance in the last 2 issues of the number issue 2 and 3. They make an appearance, and a case is made for why don't you let all the teams out at once rather than have just a backup team in case something happens to the other.
The reason behind that is because they said something weird about the original team. The backup teams is almost like clones of the original. So the person that was supposed to back up June actually has June's memories. Even though it's not physically June, but they had enough of their memories that they could physically be June.
Well, in this one, it looks like because you have a member that is captured. So the backup team is like, we have a version that can take over. We have a replacement. Why don't you, why are you sending the team out with a manpower shortage. Why don't we do that? And they're like, well, they've all trained together. You've all trained together. It's an all or nothing proposition. And so it's an interesting little side note to the actual things that are going on. But I just wondered about that other team because I'd never heard of that before. So
Neither had I.
yeah.
I don't. My understanding of the team, just like the Voltron show, was that they were all. It wasn't just that they had trained together, but they were all attuned to their specific vehicle. So to replace that person meant you also had to have somebody who was attuned to their particular vehicle.
Okay. Well, the other book that is up to issue number 4, there's one left. Profane. This is it's kind of been up and down, but I like the concept. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but basically a horror or I'm sorry, a mystery writer, a crime noir writer has been killed. And there's a private investigator that is tapped with trying to solve the murder, only to find out, because he doesn't realize it at first, but this guy wrote him. He's a fictional character. And so, yeah, it's a really, and
cool.
He's been brought over from, and his name is Will Profane, which is the name. So he's been brought over by a sponsor in the real world.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, but I really, like I said, it's kind of been up and down in its approach, but I really like the concept, and so I'm hoping that it ends on a good note.
This is the one with the sex clubs and stuff like that, right? Or the women were, it was some weird organization, some thing to do with late night naughtiness or something.
Nope. But it's very crime noir. No nightclubs. Well, there's a singer in a nightclub, but it's not one of those. It's not
okay.
Not terribly over the top sexy nightclub or anything. But okay, so I reviewed this last month. Red Before Black #2. Okay, this continues to. This is like a gal pal crime buddy kind of a story, and one of the characters reminds me a lot of Harley Quinn in her approach. The other one is much more. She's a former operative in armed services, and she had a dishonorable discharge after some kind of a big incident, and she's started working for the underworld, and there's a subplot where she's trying to work off a prison sentence, trying to get it commuted by helping authorities, and so but you have these two that come together, and the former soldier has flashbacks. She has PTSD that actually takes her out of, she's suddenly like transported back to this, whatever this horrific event was. I've only seen little bits and pieces of it, but under stress, she can suddenly kind of black out for a second and be there. Luckily, it only takes a second and then she's back, but that's one of the things she's trying to deal with. And in this issue, the other character that she's just recently met enters her PTSD flashback. She wasn't there originally. She's like, well, this is a nice place you got here. What do you do? I know. It was one of those moments I'm like,
holy crap, a moly.
I know. So I don't know if she has taken her into, if they've like, there's definitely a connection between them, personality wise. So I don't know if she has implemented her into her psyche or what, but it's just one of those moments where you go, oh, I got to get the next issue now to see where this goes. So
is she Jennifer Lopez now?
I guess. And it's one of those deals where the first issue had marginal interest, and I was like, I really liked it, and I gave it pretty high marks. And then I looked at the second issue. It's like a 1.5 higher now. Everybody's locked into this. So I think I found one to kind of tell people about before it really hit big. So that always makes me feel good when I can bring a spotlight onto something that people then go, oh, this is good. This is a one shot. story. I think it continues on with other chapters in Prairie Gods and then a subtitle. But so this is a guy that has retired from racing, and he goes and he buys the old track that he used to race on. And you find out that there's another part of the track that they didn't use as a racetrack that used to be like cross country racing. That goes, they basically took the circular part and they used it for a regular stock car racing track. But when the people first started racing there, that didn't exist, and it was what became the round around track was actually part of a big area of the south or of the desert west that was cross country. But he buys up this whole property because he's got notes from the guy that used to that started the racetrack and knows about and used to race on the whole extent of it. And there's something that this guy, as a retired driver with no more challenges, he wants to take that race, the race all the way around just by himself, because this guy has written down notes about what you will encounter. It's supernatural. It's very cool. And I also like this guy's art style. The art really does make this book. It reminds me at times of kind of a Bill Sienkiewicz kind of style to his people and cars and things. I may be wrong, but
Okay.
it was one of those. It doesn't really come across as being a big supernatural story, but it is. And it was a nice tone for the beginning of the fall season for me. So
Cool.
yeah. Okay, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #2.
Ooh.
We're looking at redefining all of the characters, modern day, and this one is the first one was on. It's not Leonardo.
Michelangelo.
No, this one's Michelangelo. I can't remember which one the first
Raphael.
one was. May have been Rolf. I think you're right. I think the next one now is Leonardo, but they are split up, and we get a look at what we don't know what has caused them to split up, but we're looking at them as mature. They're not teens anymore. They're Ninja Turtles. So, but it has a more serious approach than most. Except Michelangelo got into show business. His career kind of mirrors. He's big in Japan, and his career kind of mirrors what the kiddie version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was about. And again, it has a more serious tone for the rest of the actual setting of the story. So it's I'm enjoying looking at how each of these are being shown to be as mature heroes, or in this case, they used to be adventurers. Now he's no longer an adventurer. He plays at being an adventurer. He does it on screen. It's like a sort of like if you were a decorated soldier, kind of Audie Murphy. You were a decorated soldier. You actually fought the Foot Clan, and then you got into showbiz. So you're not shooting real guns anymore. You're not using real nunchucks. You're a star.
The latest series is on that. The latest Ninja Turtle animated series is on that track where the brothers have something's happened. They ended up split up, and they've had to find other tribes or friends to, because on this whole thing is about the turtles. That's always been is they are better in a group than they are on their own.
Right.
That's the whole point of it. It's like Splinter kind of raised them so that they would always perform better together as a group than they would individually.
So we got Shazam #15. Billy Batson he was tired of being the plaything of the pantheon that powers him, so he wouldn't say his word. And King Kull from the old original Shazam series, the Captain Marvel adventures, unleashed these terrible demonic forces on an unprotected Philadelphia, And he still wouldn't say his word because, basically the Pantheon had treated him very badly and kind of like tried to mind wipe it. He's like, we will be the personality. You don't have to be. So we finally come to the end of that idea with one of the Pantheon, and not the one I expected, to actually take him by the hand and go, here's the wisdom behind you being the champion and none of us, and brings him back. So very, very nice wind up to that arc, I thought.
Is he
See,
still like?
that's a beautiful, beautiful end to it.
Is he still like 10 or 12?
He's
grown up?
he's a teenager. He's probably about 14, 15, I would think.
So he's at that rebellious stage of life anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
yeah.
I do not want to be your puppet.
Yeah. And Dead Weights, we're on the I have one more issue left of this, I think. No, this is number 6. This wraps it up. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
But this is the one with the minor supervillains that are tired of getting their butts kicked, so they just decide to run their daytime job is running like a food truck. And they're just like, we're going to just do that. We're not going to get our butts kicked anymore. And then, of course, they get roped into having to get their butts kicked. But yeah, they make a really nice. They end up teaming up with a superhero or a former superhero to set some things right. And yeah, it's a really nice read.
These are the vampire kids, right?
No, these are like, they were henches. They were henches for hire. I've seen this similar kind of story done funnier, but this one just had real heart to it. Both of these guys have a different, they have the beginnings of a life beyond their powers and everything. So it is very nice.
Cool.
Geiger, if you like animal stories,
Barney
the two-headed.
I want to boof those snoots.
Yep, Barney the two-headed wolf. This is his issue. Enough said. Check it out. It's really good. Okay, I was really hesitant about the whole Johnny Quest series because it starts off being, oh, look, it's a mystery. No, it's not. It's a time travel story. It's not a mystery. It's, they're trying, it's real. No, it's a time travel story. Admit it. Dr. Benton Quest is not a doofus. He's not going to be surprised by this, but he's like, I have a theory, but I'm not going to express it until I know more about it. It's a time travel story, Doc. Trust me. And now with issue 2, they fully embraced as a time travel story, and it's really good. They have gotten rid of all that shambling kind of, it's a mystery. No, it's not. Okay, it's not. Here's the story. Whoa. Future Johnny and Johnny of 1964. Yeah. Yes, this is quite good. Not quite as good, however, as my shirt tonight and my love of this. I love this cover. I love it. Then thanks to Colossus Comics and Game, because I put out there, I reached out. David Prepos, the writer, put out a thing going, hey, if there's any critics out there that want to get my monthly newsletter, just let me know. And so I sent him a deal on Twitter and said, yeah, I'd like to get that if you don't mind. And here's where I do comic reviews. And everything I've heard about him, he's a super nice guy. And yeah, the correspondence was, he's like, well, I'll send you the last update in your email. What's your email address? So I gave it to him. And so then he, I log back in later and I look and there's 2 other messages from him. And he goes, I went ahead and sent you issue number 5 in digital format. Yeah. And then he goes, and then the second message was, do you need issues 1 to 4? And I'm like, I got those. And you're on my permanent pull list at the comic shop. But, on the digital copy, this is the cover. So I took a picture of the cover that he'd put that out in just the cover. He goes, this is the next issue coming out. I used that on Facebook going, I just love this series. After this interaction with him, and I got to read number 5 early, I was like, this is really good. And so I put that picture up and I told one of my friends, I'm like, I hope that I get this, I love the series. I hope that this is the cover that they pick out for me. Cause I usually take about any cover. I'm not terribly picky. But my comic shop guy saw that and he pulled one for me of this one. I don't think he had any others like that. So
Cool.
yeah, it's like its own movie poster. It's just mwah, love it. But the issue is nonstop. They have built up this action sequence, and it just doesn't relent. It
Is
is.
Monkey in it? Is Monkey in it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
monkey is in it.
And
Have what's
Zorak.
made his appearance.
Zorak is the main bad guy, and he's bad. He's a.
What
I
about Brack?
mean,
Brack is.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. He is. He's not like the. He is not like the Space Ghost Coast to Coast at all. I mean, this is. This is. Let's see here.
Well, he was watered down for Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Oh yeah, yeah. But he is like a zealot. He's a religious zealot and terrorist.
Oh
And
wow.
here you get like a.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting to see how he looks in this one, because I already saw Zorak. You showed us Zorak. I haven't seen what Brack looks like yet.
I'm sorry, it was Zorak. I meant I said the wrong
Yeah.
name. It's not. Yeah, I don't know what.
I'd ask for that series, Joe, but I need to earn money for the holidays.
But yeah, this is one of those where you go, okay, Zorak, he's holding all the cards here. So what's how is Space Ghost going to win this? And one by one, the cards take a turn. It's one of those kind of stories where it never relents, and you're going, well, now what about? Oh my gosh, look at! Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
The cars turn into dominoes, and then one starts falling after the other.
Exactly, and I love that kind of writing, and it fits well with this being a more grown-up version of the cartoon kind of characters. It gives you a lot more insight into the kids. It's a team effort. It's not just Space Ghost. It's everybody working together from different ends of the problem that ends up winning the day. And
my birthday's in February, Clyde.
Yep. Yeah. So
by that time, it should be a trade paperback, I believe.
That should be. Yep. So that was really one of my favorite reads this week. But what I'm going to review is, and I mentioned this a couple shows ago, but it's one of those that also started off with a kind of a low rating, and I looked today and I was like, oh yeah, it's gone up like 1.5 points because people started reading it and going, this is pretty good. So Convert #1, and okay, so Convert #1 is price is $3.99. It's Image. The writer is John Arcady. The art is by Savannah Finley. Colors by Miguel Coe. Letters are done by Michael Hessler. And Image Comics, I would rate it M for mature. Definitely got some mature topics in here. Give you a look at the art. This is a very science fiction-y story, and we get that right from the beginning with, we got the a lander on a planet.
Yeah, the old moon module looks like
it. There's a lot of like actual relatable tech in this, and I get to that in the review itself. So we have a guy trying to fend for himself on a planetary, on the surface of an alien world with its own flora and fauna, and we get some flashbacks to where he and his crew. You see, he's a very tall fellow there. They're like, I don't know if you'll fit into the ship. We have limited space, but he has skills that require. He's chosen for definite reasons that become very important as the story unfolds. So, we get a lot of, just because it's Earth-like. It's
doesn't
definitely
necessarily
not
mean
Earth.
it's not Earth. Oh man,
It's not Earth. They do a nice job of showing. I watch the show Answers with Joe, and he talks a lot when he discusses things about other planets and space. He says, one of the things about, Earth similar, and he goes, one of the main things that makes life on Earth possible for humans, to the extent that it is pressure. The pressure in an atmosphere is vital. And you get that in this book,
Okay.
because things are not the same on this world. And it's to the detriment of the one guy trying to live there that's a human that, you know. And then, it's science fiction. So in the next issue, we get kind of a preview of the fictional parts,
Ooh,
or at least the speculative. I'll call it speculative, more of the speculative parts.
I hate that term, speculative fiction, because fiction by its very nature is speculative.
This is speculative science.
Okay.
I'll put it that way. And since the first issue is so steeped in science, I kind of like the idea that you could say that now we're getting into the fantastical. That's true, but I'm hoping that it still has a foot in the science. So, John Arcady, now he has carved a reputation writing titles like BPRD with Hellboy. And he said in an interview that I read that Convert is presenting a science fiction fantasy adventure that he conceived of and has always wanted to try. And the way he kind of phrased it, I'm thinking like a John Carter of Mars for today.
Ooh, okay.
That sort of thing. This 4-issue miniseries begins heavier, though. Maybe for the time it was heavy on science from what they knew, but to me, this feels like it's a much more heavier emphasis on the science, and the fantastical elements will be coming in the subsequent issues. Like I showed you that image. There are things that exist on this world that aren't human. So, and that approach, I don't think it's a downside in any way, because Arcady does the science very well. When an exploratory landing craft on a mission to a habitable planet suffers a horrible accident, only one member of the 4-person crew survives, and it's that very tall fellow, Oren Kutella, who is the survivor. He is I'm sorry?
I said, oh man.
He is an evolutionary biologist, but he is also an artist. And his drive to record the flora and fauna of this new world leads to his survival, because he's not with the other 3 astronauts when a catastrophic equipment failure results in the explosion of their craft. So, with the command orbiter unable to make contact with the crew after hearing their final transmission cut short by an explosion, and without another landing craft anyway at their disposal, they're just an orbiter. There's no the timetable for a rescue is uncertain. It might not even happen. Looking at how long it took them to get to this destination, which that is something I'm a little on the fence about. That seems a bit odd to me that it was this long to get here. At least he's talking. He's running through his mind of how soon he could expect somebody to come, perhaps get him. And then the length of time, I'm like, why would it take that long? They haven't been in space that long. It's not a generational ship. Would it take that long to actually get another mission, a ship built and going that could go? I wouldn't think so. I mean, we're talking, because the what he gives for a possibility as far as a window is really big. So, so he's not even sure that they will try to come down there, since they don't think anybody's probably survived. The equipment, all the radio is out, so he can't contact them and let them know that he's there. So he's, we're cast away in space. But this isn't the Martian. The planet has plants, and it's got animal life, and it's got breathable atmosphere. So you're not going to have to science the crap out of it necessarily. However, there are issues. There are issues of psychological trauma, of course, and survival guilt that he's going to have to work through. And worse, he finds deficiency in available essential minerals necessary for human health.
Oh.
And worse still, there are toxins woven into the alien ecology that and differences in their atmosphere, making harvesting of animals for food very difficult. So, and even plants are not, he can't sustain himself on the plants.
Yeah, I
So
was about to say.
yeah, it's all these factors lead our lone survivor down an increasingly dark path, but one that opens into a literal alien landscape of possibilities as the premiere concludes. So the storyline is compelling enough. I'll be picking up this series to find out. I've got like two theories about what we're seeing here in this alien world. And I want to see if they're both true, or if either one of them is true. If I'm way off from where the creative team is plotting a course here. The artist, Savannah Finley, manages the alien world setting well enough. I think it definitely, in those pictures of the nighttime and the differences of lighting and stuff, is, that I think it works quite well. A mission to this planet um, makes sense given the similar yet different elements. Oren finds in his environment the and you mentioned the spacefaring, it looks like a lunar lander. Yeah, the spacefaring tech shown in this artwork is restrained. It's built upon existing proven methods of space exploration. Um, you're not seeing SpaceX design or anything like that in what's been shown.
Yeah, it's
It's
more like
much older.
60s. It's
It
more like
does.
it's
Yeah.
1950s, 1960s tech, which would explain if you think about how long it's taken to get us to Mars, it would
True, but
explain why he would think that it would take them so long to be, not the fact of manufacturing, but the fact of actually getting it there, depending on how long their trip took.
their trip didn't take as long as the window he's looking at. Unless they went into suspended animation or something, but we don't know. We don't know that.
Oh, okay.
But so yeah, if you think expanded Apollo mission designs, because it accommodates more people, it's not as small. Everything's a bit bigger. Um, Rather than fanciful flights regarding next gen interstellar travel, you you grasp it pretty well, and I like the practicality of that. Because it combined with the inherent perils, that I think that works into the overall grounded theme of this narrative. So I might normally find fault with that, but I think that this works for this particular story. So for readers who like their harder science fiction over pure space opera, Convert should hold some appeal. Also, it should be attractive for those who enjoy human versus elements of nature and Castaway kind of adventures where you got a hero, you got a human being that is away from all of his support and his other fellow humans having to deal with a hostile environment.
But Disney
Given,
already did Jonathan Crusoe and stuff.
yeah, I know. Given the first issue's emphasis on science, I am curious how or if that focus is going to be continuing on with the more fantastic elements that emerge in the next installments. This book launches, though, with a lot of hooks across a lot of interests, and the passion of the creative team provides its rocket fuel to launch it. And I think it's a very good first issue for those reasons. Um, if you like the median level hard science, I'm not a hard science guy, so I grasped what he was talking about. I had to look up about 6 things that he's talking about the environment and being different and having to try to cope with, and they're all correct. I mean, the things he's going through, the things his body goes through, it seems to be pretty accurate. So I'm going to call it a median level hard science. If you like the kind of thing to spice up your sci-fi adventures, I think you'll understand why Convert #1 gets a rating from me of 8 steely-eyed missile men commendations out of 10. So.
Well,
Wow, that's a new category. Steely-eyed missile. Wow.
Well, I always try to come up with something that pertains to the story, and I'm thinking Apollo 13 when I'm reading it. Adapting and coping with. So yeah, that's what it gets.
well,
Why couldn't it be Houston, we got a problem?
Well, because it's not about the problem as much as it's about the survival.
yeah, and the reason we have a problem, it's more about if we don't fix this problem in the next, X amount of time, we're going to die.
In Apollo 13, the steely-eyed missile man is the guy that figures out how to take parts from trash and make a converter for their air scrubbers.
Exactly.
that don't fit. So to me, a steely-eyed missile man, this is what he's going to have to do.
Mhm.
He's going to have to do those sorts of things. And it looks like
No sausage plants that he can just boil them and have sausages.
I think
hey,
that's what you kind of making me think about what was the movie called The Martian.
I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually interested in how this develops, because what I'm doing with And the Coming of Nighttime
Mhm.
is what sets the situation that they're in off is the fact of it's an Earth where we've started sending out, we're colonizing.
Mhm.
But the thing is that has its own dangers. What if it's a hostile environment in regards to just to get down there? Can you breathe? If something happens on the ship, you're losing oxygen, you know. And when they come up with this idea about blending human and werewolf DNA, that's where she's coming from. She is looking at if they can, and she doesn't tell them she's using werewolf DNA. She just says, I have this idea. But they're trying to create, the whole thing is these different science corporations have been tasked with trying to figure out how to solve this problem. She and her husband at their company are, because it's called biological, they're looking at it from the organic perspective. In other words, it's not just making sure you have the right equipment. You also have to have a creature that can go into what could be a hostile environment and be able to survive it. And you would need something like a human, modern day human with ancient human abilities, such as heightened hearing, vision, smell, whatnot. So you could sense that, oh, maybe, there could be things walking around here that could be dangerous, or, our oxygen is down. We have to figure out, cut down our breathing so we survive this, and have bodies that if you do get injured, you can regenerate to a certain degree. And of course, they find out about werewolf DNA, and so they blend werewolf DNA from it. I finally get to page 48. I am so happy I got through that tube. Well, it was my own fault. I'm used to doing very simplistic illustrations, not hugely complex, and I had to create a lab, and I did his lab, but I did it. That picture was originally done in Painter Essentials 4. And so DPI was a lot less. I think we were at 70 something DPI when I did this.
Printer
Yeah.
Resolution, or at least
Yeah.
standard
So
commercial printer that you would buy at like an Office Max type store.
So now when I took that and started, and Joe, I think I showed it to you what I was doing.
Mhm.
The problem was, because this was done at half that resolution that we use now, just trying to set it at 300 DPI wasn't enough, because what happened was, because it's an older picture, you get modeling, you get pixelations, colors don't come out right. So I literally had to
all that detail that you put in it at 72 DPI, you lose it when you blow it up.
So I spent a lot of time. So I was creating new pieces to put in, but then realizing that it's a 2-page spread at 300 DPI, it's like, oh, I am getting, straight lines were fuzzing out. And when I hit close up so I could do faces and stuff, I was getting pixelations. So it was putting in the new stuff and then making all those corrections to the old stuff. And the original design had been, I had looked at several different pictures and kind of pieced things together. And I didn't, because when my old portable hard drive died, all of the source material that I had used to piece together was gone. and I couldn't find it on I couldn't find individual pieces on the web anymore. So I had to basically just take what I had, and it's like, okay, how much of this can I repair? How much of this do I need to repair? And then how much of it can I leave alone and still get my characters in there so it doesn't look like they're in two different worlds? So it was just, I'd be there 3 hours and going, okay, the floor doesn't look a mess, or I just fixed the ceiling. And I made the mistake at one point. I thought, well, I'll just fix this stuff on the ceiling. And I did it on a separate layer. And then I did another piece and realized I had to shift it. And for some reason, my software shifted both pieces. So that the earlier piece no longer fit, and I couldn't get it back in. So I was going in and redoing each of these little things, and then all of the little things that I thought, I'll just put these books and statuary and bottles and things for her lab in the background, and it'll just make it look more complete. Because for him, the background was very clean. It was very new text, so they had the cabinetry, but not a lot of stuff on it because they had so much computers. And it's like hers is to show not just that she's a modern scientist, but also to go back to her roots, her culture. Her Medea said, it's not enough. Medea was like, it's not enough to put it in a computer. It should be in a book as well. So she's got books and stuff that harken back to her roots. Okay. She was a little girl who her Medea fought to get her books so she could win this science fair so she could get attention. So it was like, okay, trying to figure out how to put the new stuff in and not ruin all the old stuff. And of course, the minute I started putting all the new stuff in, the old stuff was like, oh, we're going to go out of, I'm going out of focus. I'm pixelating. It's like, oh God. And I was sitting, I did it. I finally got it done. And it was like, I will never draw this lab again. It's like, I am never again going to do. I am so happy that I don't have any laboratories. But then I reminded myself, yeah, but the next issue is going to include the inside of a Starliner. It's like, why am I doing these things to myself? But I'm also
telling a story.
But I love the idea of this story because I have to do this whole how to make what is basically a supernatural creature into looking at it not as, it's sort of what they did with The Strain, where vampires, he was trying to look at the vampires if it was some weird genetic offshoot that was now a mutation. Mm-hmm. And looking at it, because it's like, okay, but that means you have to make changes. I have to make changes in the story. Like, yeah, in my story, if a werewolf bites you, you just bit. A werewolf biting you will not change you into a werewolf. It just might put you on the dinner menu. It's not you're not gonna get bit, and then 3 days later the full moon comes up and you can just you're a werewolf. And then changing it and giving and then trying to come up with, okay, so you have this difference. Do you have a culture? What's that culture like? And you also are trying to live in secret. So it's like, how do you, and anybody who's grown up in a marginalized group, it is that, you have to be part of the greater world. And yet you also have, it's like you're straddling two worlds, because there's that greater outside world, and then there's that inner world of your culture. And how much do you let go of that inner world to meet the outer world? And how much of the outer world do you reject in order to not totally lose that inner world?
Okay, we're going to have to put a pin in this topic here because we're over the 2 hour 43 minute mark here.
And I gotta go scrub a toilet.
That's a heck of a segue.
At least you've got your priorities. You got your priorities straight at least. So
We
that's-
have my landlord. We have Section 8,
Mhm.
which means once every year to 2 years we have to get inspected in order to maintain our status. And it's broken into two things. There's the residents' responsibilities and the landlords. So they grade both the landlord and the resident, and they grade us separately. We passed inspection. The landlord did not. So tomorrow they have to come re-inspect where the landlord failed to see if they've done acceptable work to make repairs. But in order for that to happen, I still got to scrub the whole house again.
right.
Oh wow.
Because this guy, the guy who did the initial inspection this time, he was done in 10 minutes. It was the fastest inspection I'd ever had. He came in, he looked around, he said, "Does your oven work? Yes. Does your fridge work? Yes. Does that microwave work? Yep. If we turn on that faucet, will water come out? Yes." And then he looked up in the living room and saw where the paint was peeling off the trim. And he said, "Well, that's not acceptable." And because it's on the ceiling, it obviously wasn't where, people were peeling
You did
paint.
something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was obviously, okay, it's lead paint. It's humid in here in the summers. And now that paint is peeling off and falling. And he was like, "You have to repair this." And, the guy representing the landlord was like, "Okay, we have to repair it." So, but I don't know if that person is going to be the guy who shows up tomorrow. It could be someone totally different. And so he may come in, and because I might have forgotten to do something, he might decide to he might just come in, look at that spot and say, "Oh, you fix it? Okay, bye," and leave. Or he might decide to come in and inspect the entire apartment all over again, even though we'd already passed.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you never know until it happens. So, I worked on the comic earlier today. So it's like, okay, I got to now go scrub my toilet. Because
right.
That's what life is,
So on that note, let's go ahead and end everything and have you to tell people this is how you get in contact with you outside of scrubbing the toilet.
Yeah, because you come crawling up my toilet. Just remember, I keep a lot of stabby things in my house. So you don't want to do that.
And besides, you don't want her to go Yasatasi, huh? Like Mr.
Yeah, you don't want me to pull a Wilma Flintstone because I live on the second floor. That's a fall. Okay, you go get hurt. But anyway, I'm at Facebook, Elaine Haygood. I am here on YouTube, Elaine Haygood. I am Lynn Capper 1 on X, or as I prefer, the Twitter place. And you can find me at LinkedIn, Elaine Haygood. I'm also on Pinterest for artists. If I've got a whole board called Creative Necessities that is just figure drawing and other things, because I suck at that stuff, and this helps me out. And so or show up at my YouTube and write something. Hey, what are you at this place so I can find you? I'll tell you. Anyway, I gotta go scrub a toilet and do dishes and sweep and mop. Y'all take care. Catch you later. Bye.
All right. And here's Clyde.
Hey, I'm Clyde Hall, an elder statesman of geekery. You can follow me on Facebook at Clyde Hall, or Radiating Positive Vibes with author Clyde Hall, where we make at least one daily posting to improve your day. We look at things that are nostalgic sometimes. We look at art. We have a Museum Monday, a Trippy Art Tuesday a lot of times. We have a Mirthful Midweek on Wednesdays. So you can check me out on either Clyde Hall or Positive Vibes with author Clyde Hall Facebook, or I'm on Twitter at CJ Hall 1984, or you can check out my Amazon authors page right here. I'm currently part of the online comic book review crew at comicsbeat.com, aka The Beat. They're at www.comicsbeat.com, all one word. And of course, part of the Comic Book Spectrum podcast here every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central on YouTube. In my spare time, I'm an independent award-winning author and a contributing writer at Stormgate Press. You can find me in their anthologies like Spurs and Six Shooters, Tales of the Old West. It's like this. Tim Bruckner's Major Marjorie. And that just kind of represents we do new pulp westerns, we do new pulp sci-fi, we do new pulp um, of various kinds in our anthologies like Pulp Reality, volumes 1 through 4, and volume 5 on the way. I have contributed to The Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland, which is aviator adventure new pulp. And I'm in both The Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland, volumes 1 and 2. Just go to www.stormgatepress.com to see the best in new pulp entertainment. Comic Book Spectrum is brought to you by one of the bullpen members at Stormgate Press, artist, and he is an artist, but he's also a friend. He has done work for me. He did this for one of my Captain Hawkland stories, the Banshee Barnstormer, and I just love his work. And he was so much fun to work with. So, artist, friend extraordinaire, Jeffrey Hayes at Plasma Fire Graphics. He is a Pulp Factory award-winning artist, several years running, and one of the awards was for The Terrors, Brian K. Morris's latest publication. And you can see why. I mean, this is the kind of visual that draws people to your table at shows or to your spaces online when you post pictures of your book for sale. His covers always they illustrate why he wins awards. For your next project, be it books or games or other graphic enhanced work, you want somebody that brings readers to your table or to your page. And Jeffrey Hayes is that somebody. He is easy to work with and he is affordable. And Joe is now going to tell you how you can get Plasma Fire Graphics working for you.
That's right. If you like what Clyde showed you, you're going to love what I'm about to get ready to show you now.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
You seen those graphics, you saw what Clyde showed you. So if you like what you see, guess what? Just give Jeffrey Hayes a quick little message on plasmafiregraphics.com or go out to his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. As far as I am concerned, guess what? I'm going to be on Whatnot on tomorrow. Why? Because we are going to be a part of the release for X-Men 97. Yes, this is one of the variant packs that I was able to secure here from Marvel. And I got 10 of these, and we will be selling these on Whatnot at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Whatnot. Look for Silphote on Whatnot. It should be in the main listing here at the 10 o'clock p.m. time slot. We will be selling these as well as other X-Men issues here. And we will be back on that Saturday or Whatnot at 5 p.m., which is our normal slotted time for our Whatnot show for twice a month here, as well as our regular show for From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher that we want to talk about the whole roundup for the two shows and everything here. Hopefully I won't be as tired and won't do a short show. And when I say a short show, it's normally about like an hour, less than an hour if it's a short show. But if it's a longer show, we might run the full 2 hours here. But until tomorrow, I'll see you guys out there or whatnot, or I'll catch you guys Saturday right here on From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. But as far as Comic Book Spectrum is concerned, as we always say, live life, grow, and be well. And I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. Catch you all later, and we're out of here for the evening. Have a great rest of your night here. And bye.